Collection is a women's contemporary lifestyle brand designed to empower and inspire women to move through their own personal life journey. It's very simple what we do. We create clothing that is reliable, comfortable, and stylish that allows women to move through their day with ease and confidence, all while inspiring other women. It's no secret that as women, we struggle with body images, clothing that makes us feel frumpy, insecure, and just not feeling at our best. So it's our priority to design clothing that changes a woman's emotions when it comes down to their wardrobe. We make clothing that is consistent with a woman's lifestyle. We create spaces for women to empower themselves and to feel beautiful and confident no matter what stage they are in their personal journey in life. It's not always that easy though, because as women we deal with so many different changes. There's motherhood, there's our careers, there's just everything that life brings us sometimes that can oftentimes become just hard for us and can be a hardship. So what better way than to provide clothing that changes that and makes you feel good throughout every milestone? And that's what we do. We have clothing for the pregnant woman, the traveling woman, the entrepreneur, just the woman that wants to feel good and feel inspired and share that with another woman that's experiencing the same things as her. Taylor J Collection eliminates this whole exhausting and consuming experience. I design clothing to contract and expand with a woman's body as she moves through one phase of life to another. My clothes wrap around bodies in a number of ways. They can be belted, worn loose and flowy. They can be sweaters, tunics, shawls, or even dresses. We have built a loyal, committed customer base since 2015, and this has inspired us to create for even more women. The problem is, it's very, very costly to do this. Do you know that it takes up to $1,000 just to make one style? That's one style. And so for us, we've always made it a mission to provide clothing for curvy women, but now we want to take it a step further and we need your help to do this. We ask that you check out all the women that we have already touched hearts, we've touched their hearts, and they love the clothing, and we want this to be present for every woman in every household across the world. So please take the time, check out our brand, check out our mission, and see what we stand for, and try to find yourself within this brand. Help another woman discover her journey, and it starts with what you wear. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thanks for your love.
Today's live stream is being brought to you by Clari-T Media. Support the Dreamer Fund, assisting dreamers and undocumented students financially to pursue and complete law school through creative community engagement. Visit dreamerfund.org today. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Alicia Mayo here at Clari-T Media. Glad to be joining you on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Thank you for joining me here. And I'm here today to honor the legacy and work of Dr. Martin Luther King and the history of the civil rights movement. This weekend, we are celebrating his birthday, and he is one of our leaders. And wouldn't it be nice to have Dr. King around today? Just in time for all of the things that are happening in our society today. Can you imagine how he might feel and some of the ideals that he might be talking to us about? Well, let's honor him in a way remembering his legacy and looking back just for a moment to remind ourselves of what is important about us as a people and our freedoms and liberties and the things that we are still fighting for today. There's no doubt about it that we are still combating a lot of the things that Dr. King fought against, unfortunately. But we do have the blueprint, thank goodness, for people like him and people like W.E.B. Du Bois and others who fought, in ways that we can only imagine, against the things that we can't even imagine. And so I'm here again to honor Dr. King and other civil rights leaders who put in the work in order for us to get to the place where we're at today, with still more work to do, but with the legacy of all of the work that was done long before us. And I am joined with a very special guest today. He is the president of the Tri-City branch of the NAACP. I'll introduce him in just a moment, but let me just share with you the history of the civil rights movement and Dr. King's devotion to the movement, and why we should all take a moment to just think about how we can continue to make a positive impact in our respective communities, spreading the ideas of peace and equal rights as he did, and liberty for all. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, is the oldest grassroots civil rights organization that was created to combat racial discrimination, segregation, voting rights, violence against African Americans, and education rights, to just name a few. But this was all an effort that was created and started with W.E.B. Du Bois's Niagara movement, along with 29 other civil rights leaders back in 1909. They published a manifesto, much like Ice Cube's manifesto that he's been talking about, that demanded equal rights and laid out some ideas about the rights of Black people and our future, economically, politically, with affirmative action and employment rights and all of that. But that manifesto was published in 1909 by W.E.B. Du Bois and others back then, to end the racial discriminations that we're still faced with today. To be considered as a whole human being and deserving of dignity and equality, people of color joined with other racial groups who also had some similar moral ideas. And that was when the NAACP was born. So here we are today, still joining together to try and continue with those legacies and those ideas. So I want to share a quick video to just highlight the history of the NAACP, and then we'll be joined by my special guest. Thank you so much for joining me here on Clari-T Media. I'll be back with the special guest and more, so stay tuned, okay? Thank you for joining us.
In the early 1900s, vicious attacks against African Americans were almost as common in the North as in the South. In the summer of 1908, a white mob attacked African Americans in Springfield, Illinois. During the riot, 2 Black men were lynched, dozens more injured, and homes and businesses were destroyed and burned. Thousands of African Americans fled the city in search of safety.
And this riot in the hometown of Abraham Lincoln really upsets a lot of people who had hoped for better for American race relations.
After the Springfield riot, William E. Walling, a white Harvard-educated socialist and labor reformer from Kentucky, wrote an article for a liberal periodical, The Independent, and described the violence against African Americans. Disturbed by the increasing number of attacks against blacks, he called for a large and powerful body of citizens to come to their aid.
Many whites and blacks saw the need for an organization that would be a kind of national presence, both in speaking out against this kind of racial terrorism, but also beginning to advocate politically and legally for the rights of African Americans.
Mary Ovington, a journalist and reformer, responded to Walling's article. On February 12, 1909, the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birthday, Ovington and Walling called for a national conference to address racial justice. 3 months later, black and white social workers, intellectuals, educators, reformers, and lawyers met in New York City and established the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Its founders include not only black leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois, but reformers like Jane Addams, Rabbi Stephen Wise, a whole series of people who are coming out of women's organizations.
The mission of the NAACP was to end forced segregation and racial violence and to ensure civil liberties for all. In 1915, lawyers for the NAACP won a Supreme Court case which ruled that the grandfather clause used by some states to stop blacks from voting was unconstitutional. Another early success came in 1917 when the Supreme Court declared segregated housing was unconstitutional.
They focused on litigation, changing the laws, and so therefore they lobbied through Congress and with the president to get the federal government to transform state laws to ensure the civil rights of blacks, but also education. They believed that you could change the hearts of white America if you could re-educate them.
One way the NAACP re-educated people was through a monthly magazine called The Crisis. The magazine, edited by W.E.B. Du Bois, served as a newspaper, a literary review, and a voice for the rights of men irrespective of color or race. Du Bois wrote eloquent and forceful articles in the magazine to report and denounce racial segregation and injustice. In 1919, the NAACP published a study on the lynching and racial violence of the previous 30 years. Members of the NAACP worked continuously for anti-lynching legislation, but it never passed.
In the first decade of the NAACP's existence, it didn't get a lot of attention. It was a small organization. It never had enough money. World War I changes that. The events of the war, the politics of race during the war send hundreds of thousands of members into the organization and really transform it into a mass membership organization.
By 1920, the NAACP had more than 300 local branches across the United States and almost 100,000 members. As their numbers grew, so did their impact. In the fight against Jim Crow and segregation, the NAACP would become one of the leading protest organizations in the United States.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining me here at Clari-T Media. I'm Alicia Mayo, the CEO, founder, and executive producer here at Clari-T Media, here to celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King. He was a great civil rights leader, but we have other leaders in our communities today who are doing the work to advance the rights and the liberty and all of those things that Dr. King fought for. There are individuals in our communities still fighting for the same things. And I am joined today with one of those persons, a very special guest. He is the president of the Tri-City branch of the NAACP of Solano County, Johnny Kahn George. Thank you so much, Johnny Kahn, for joining me today for this conversation about the history and our current state of civil rights and just how we're all getting involved. I know you've been involved. Let's talk a little bit about what you've been up to and what your responsibilities are as the president of the Tri-City branch here in Solano County.
Well, thank you, Alicia, for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be invited. Let me first just say that we're actually we advocate for Fairfield Sassoon in Vacaville. That's where the Tri-City comes from. There's actually a branch that advocate for Vallejo, fiercely led by President Jimmy Jackson, one who I call a big brother. He's been on this battlefield way longer than I have. And I more than often lean to him for advice. So big props to Mr. President Jimmy Jackson. But yeah, so as president of the Tri-City branch of the NAACP, my basic responsibility is to exercise general executive authority on behalf of our branch. And what does that mean? I represent us, out in the public. I'm the face of the organization. Cut and dry. I'm just the face. We have so many soldiers behind the scenes that's in the trenches doing the work, and I appreciate our members and our executive committee for their support and their trust and allow me to lead them.
So let me just ask you, okay, you really did kind of lay it out for us. It sounds like the NAACP has now become smaller branches. Over the years, it seems like there was one national group and maybe a few local groups, but it sounds like there are smaller branches and chapters. Or is that the case? And how can people imagine the whole tree?
Okay, so let me try to explain it this way. So you're absolutely right. Since 1909, we have expanded and grown tremendously. Lord God willing, in February, we will celebrate 119 years, I believe. And last I checked, we have 2,200 branches of the NAACP, local branches of the NAACP, and over 1 million members worldwide. And so if I could just break it down and kind of give you a picture like this. So as we know how our government is laid out, we have the president, then we have governors, then we have mayors. So Derek Johnson is the president and CEO of the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People. And then each state has a governor or a state conference president. And some of you may know our Alice Huffman. She's been our state president for years. She actually resigned not too long ago. And then so under our state conference president, then we have the local branches or the mayors, so to speak. So it's kind of, organized the way our government is. And so myself and Jimmy Jackson, will be, the mayors or the presidents of the local branches.
Okay, so I had to have you do that so that my audience understands how to reach the NAACP when they have issues. Who are they to go to? How will they find the leaders in their respective counties or cities, et cetera, like that? That's why I had you lay it out like that for us, so that we could really understand where to find the NAACP. Now let's talk about what it is that the NAACP is doing for these communities and individuals within the communities, because I think most people think that the NAACP is all about legal defense. When the stuff hits the fan, in terms of race-related discrimination, and it happens all the time, every day, we should reach out to the NAACP. Or should we?
Yes, you absolutely should. And the reason why is because the NAACP, our mission is to ensure the political, education, social, and economic equality of rights for all persons, and to eliminate race-based discrimination. And so if you reach out to my office or President Jackson's office, we'll steer you in the right way, in the right to the correct branch. So if someone from Benicia, although he's the president of the Vallejo branch, he covers Benicia, and surrounding cities of Vallejo. We cover Dixon or, cities close to our jurisdiction as well. So no matter what branch you get to, we would definitely put you in contact with the right person, just like you wouldn't see the San Francisco police in Vallejo, we stay in our respective jurisdictions. And so definitely reach out to us. We are a nonprofit organization. We are all volunteers, predominantly volunteers. I know on a national and state level, there's a couple of paid positions, but we are predominantly volunteers. And the work of the NAACP is done through fundraisers, through memberships, and through our standing committees. And what I mean by standing committees, and this will go towards Alicia, what you're saying about some of the work that we do in the community. And so we have press, publicity, and a communication committee. We have a health committee. And you know, the health disparities in our communities, especially, you know, with COVID-19. And then we have the legal redress committee. And that's the committee that you know, someone said they got pulled over by the Vacaville police and their rights were, you know, violated. And our legal redress committee chair and their team would investigate those allegations. Then we have the education committee, a youth council committee, membership, a life membership committee, political action. I'm very proud of our political action activities, political action committees activities during this past election. We did some outstanding things. We also have the Armed Services Veterans Affairs Committee. You know, we're living in a military community. So it only, you know, goes to have that committee. Then we have the Religious Affairs Committee. The Black Church has been so instrumental to the work of the NAACP. And so it's just right that we stay engaged with our faith-based community. And then finally, we have the Freedom Fund Committee. And that's that committee puts off our annual Freedom Fund Gala, which helps to raise costs for operations of the branch, but most importantly to raise funds for our scholarship fund. But there's there's probably about 6 or 7 other committees, but for the Tri-City, those are the 10 committees that we work with and that we, you know, enact. Now, a lot of times people think as soon as you call it NAACP, we're going to get picket signs and we're going to go and stand in front of Macy's, you know, because, you know, they told a group of Black people that they didn't belong in here and they don't want to serve them. You know, it doesn't work that way. You call us, you know, and we do one of the things that I pride Vallejo branch and the Tri-City branch is that we don't act with a knee-jerk reaction. We actually, you know, check the facts and do our investigation before we take direct action. And direct action could be a press release, a press conference, picket, call for a boycott. It could be several things that we would do. But we definitely want to, you know, people have due process. Just check the facts.
Okay, well, on that note, there are a lot of things happening in our society, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, at our state capitals this weekend in particular, with all of the violence against Black people, you know, this civil protesting in the streets, and now with, you know, the possible threats against African Americans by some supremacists, and you guys must be busy.
Yes,
are you?
Yes, we are. We are. And, you know, last year, we had the same, you know, information, you know, propaganda is what I was looking for, circulating around social media and through text messaging. And, you know, I put a statement out on my Facebook page that, you know, this happened, you know, last year. And our president and CEO, Derek Johnson, you know, informed the individual that it wasn't true, that the NAACP did not receive credible threats and the NAACP did not put out a warning. And it goes the same with the same information that's being circulated. And so the statement that I put out on our Facebook page is that, you know, is basically one of the things that that I believe allowed this guy that's on his way out of the White House is to even get in the White House is through fear. And we've seen so many administrations use fear tactics to get elected. And they use these fear tactics with, you know, with a demographic that believe that their country, their nation is going to be taken or stolen from this. Well, you know, contrary to belief, this is America's country. And so it's a scare tactic. And one of the other things that I believe is just like the propaganda that was going out on social media that led up into that insurrection on the state capitol, you know, it's what we call a dog whistle. You know, you just put it out there, keep putting this out there, and then your loyal followers, you know, would act. And so, but, you know, we're not naive, although the NAACP haven't received any information. We do know that this country is most divided, you know, because of Donald Trump than it's ever been. And so we're calling for not only African Americans, but people of color to be vigilant, to always check and be aware of your surroundings. But we're not, saying that to put any fear, but it's just common sense. Always, always, always be vigilant and, aware of your surroundings.
Okay, so on that note, can you share any credible issues that have come up with the threats of violence that the NAACP has dealt with that you can share with all of us, and tell us about what parts of the country is having issues, based on what you know and what you can share.
Yes. So again, we don't have any credible or I have and the information trickled down, from our national office to the state office, and then the state would share the information with the branches on the throughout the state. So throughout the state of California, our state office would give us information. So there's no credible threats given to the NAACP. And so I'm not aware of any other branches or any other state conferences that that have any particular issues that's going on. We just know right here in these Tri-Cities, we have enough incidents that we're facing, and because our country is just divided, and so you get a lot of things between neighbors, those sort of what is it? The Hatfields and McCoys type of deal, where you have neighbors going at it, and is basically a neighbor that's Democratic and a neighbor that's Republican, or a neighbor that supported Biden, had Biden signs in their yard, and the other neighbor had Trump signs in their yard, and so that kind of negative energy and tension, we get a lot of those calls. But as far as anybody talking about any specific group, is going to target, African Americans at Walmart or something like that. We don't. That's we haven't received any information. But again, we do encourage everyone to always be aware of your surroundings.
Oh, that kind of takes a little bit of that anxiety and stress off of a lot of people, including myself, my audience, and we have a lot to think about, and coronavirus, is something we can't see, that can creep up on you and sucker punch you, right? But we see a lot of the actual physical violence that is happening on television being amongst white folks. So with that, are you guys involved in any of that kind? I mean, because, the NAACP was founded by more than just African-American folks, and it was founded based on civil rights and liberties and all of that. Do you guys, have issues where European folks of European descent or white folks are reaching out to you for your help and your support as well? That would be interesting to know, I think.
Yes, well,
or other, Black and Indigenous people of color, for that matter.
Yeah, well, as you know, or may or may not know, I've been president of the Tri-City branch since 2017. Since then, we haven't had any. Our complainants have predominantly been African Americans, and then after that, those of Latino, Mexican, and forgive me for not knowing the current term. I think it's Latinx is the proper terminology nowadays. So forgive my ignorance. But other than that, no, we haven't had any. Actually, I take that back. We're actually actively investigating the Budweiser plant here in Fairfield, and there's allegations that I can't go into details. But there may be there may be information shared as of Wednesday of this week, in a couple of days, and I'll make sure that I'll share that information with you so you can share with your audience as well. But in that complaint, in those investigations, there is white women. There's women white women that also identify with the LGBTQ community, community as well, and so we're actively investigating that, but I can't go into too many details. But that isn't just African Americans. One of the things that I will share is that for the past 7 years, there hadn't been an African American woman working in a plant on the floor. And because of the NAACP's, actions and investigations, we're proud to say that an African American woman was hired last Wednesday. And as that's not a fix. There's still a lot to take place, but we're glad that at least that they're starting to diversify and that demographic is starting to be represented. So that's all I'm gonna share. I probably shared too much already.
Well, let me just share a little bit of my own understanding about Budweiser. My youngest aunt, actually worked at the plant a few years back. So I'm surprised to hear that they're still, working through their employment practices over there at Budweiser. And it's nice to know that the NAACP is available to advocate for people of Latinx descent, African Americans, LGBTQ plus communities and others. So that's good news. So let's talk a little bit about, the history of the NAACP involved, advocating for people during the Jim Crow laws and grandfather clauses during the Voting Rights Acts and lynching and that extreme violence and segregation and all those things that we know about or should know about. How do you think current issues for African Americans compare to the history? In other words, would you say that we have had significant progress or, moderate progress, or in comparison to history? Give us your summarized ideas about where we're at today.
Well, I believe we've definitely had some progress. I wouldn't say, that's that's a tricky one. We definitely had some progress, but we're still fighting the same fight. We're fighting it differently now. One of the things when I first became president of the TriCity branch, a lot of our seasoned civil rights veterans, kind of got a sense that I was that they wasn't relevant, or I was trying to push them out, and that's actually the opposite. They have the history. You mentioned blueprint earlier. They have the blueprint. But again, we're fighting the same fight in different ways, and so we need our seasoned civil rights veterans to help lead my generation. And what I plan on doing is, bringing the generation after me, under my wing, so that, in 2 years, this baton or this torch could be passed on. But we have made some, progress. One of the things that I like about this new generation is, and don't get me wrong, there was a lot of courageous men and women back in those days that stood up and stood their ground. There was a lot of bloodshed, for us to have the rights and the liberties that we have. So there was progress being made, but there's so much farther that we need to go. And one of the sad things that I'm seeing here in Fairfield, Sicily, and Vacaville is the divide between between the advocates and activists. That's just, that crushes my heart, to see we're all fighting for the same, for the same, we're fighting the same fight, but, for some reason, because our methods are different, we have to attack each other. And that's one of the oldest tricks. If you get a chance, read the Woody Lynch letter, or even Susan's Art of War, and they're just playing, they're playing us right into their hands. But we're fighting the same fight, we're fighting different ways, but there's no, it's not by happenstance that the NAACP will be celebrating 119 years. So, some people think that we're, and then I go back to what you opened up with, some people think that we're Ren or we're puppets for white people, that's, hey, you you're free to believe what you want to believe, but this fight. One of the things that Dr. King did, and a lot of the white clergy that joined Dr. King in the fight, back in the day, a lot of them did get attacked as well. But by bringing that, knowing that that these marches and these demonstrations was broadcast all over the world on live TV, a lot of the violence didn't take place or wasn't as worse as it could be, seeing that those white individuals were standing alongside of Dr. King and those civil rights leaders. And so one of the things that the NAACP and me in particular, my approach is diplomacy. And so, I built relationships with a lot of our elected officials, chief of police, the district attorney's office. It's just actually Friday, I had an initial meeting with the public defender. And so, although I have, connections with these individuals, they all know that doesn't mean you get a pass. And so we will hold individuals accountable. And I'm pleased with those relationships that we built and the success that we were able to accomplish because of those relationships. Not everything, not everything that we do is because of confidentiality. We're not going to go up. Advocated for, for Sister Jones and this and that. We're not going to share that, but please know that we're on the battlefield, day in and day out.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break and take care of a little business. When we come back from the break, I will ask you a few more questions about specifics in terms of what you guys are up to in the communities, because I'm sure people want to know just what our future looks like with the help of the NAACP, and then we'll wrap up this conversation. So thank you to everyone out there for joining me here on Clari-T Conversations. I'm Alicia Mayo, CEO, founder, executive producer here of Black-owned media. Please support us. Please support what I'm doing and the content I'm bringing to you here. I'll be back with the president here, Johnny Con George of the NAACP, in just a few. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
Peace and Black Power, family. My name is Reefer One. I belong to the organization Open the Rooms. I'm also the director of another organization called Aerosol. What I do is I work in the area of visual culture. So we work to politicize our brothers and sisters through controlling the visual landscape of the community. As a muralist, it is very important that we create an atmosphere that is conducive to the political and spiritual and cultural growth and economic growth of African people, wherever they are. It's very important that we control the space that we live in our interests, and it's very important that we organize to make sure that it's sustainable. It is the artist's job to make revolution irresistible and to plant the seeds of change in the minds of future generations. And Black solidarity is not only important, it's an absolute necessity for us to survive this current crisis that we are experiencing right now globally, not just in this United States of America, but wherever we are as African people, we face the same crisis of dealing with barbarism of white supremacy. And it's necessary for us to be organized. It's very necessary for us to have this level of solidarity so we can have the proper organization that we need scientifically, so we can move in our best interests, politically, spiritually, culturally, and otherwise. All power to the people.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to Clari-T Media. It's Alicia, CEO, founder, executive producer. If you're enjoying the programming, drop me a like, a comment, or a contribution to nonprofit media like this. Thank you. Tune in weekdays to the Bay Area Mental Health Hour on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. You'll find us covering issues surrounding your everyday coping skills and your mental health and wellness. And remember, your mental health matters as much as your physical health. Today's live stream is being brought to you by Clari-T Media. Support the Dreamer Fund, assisting dreamers and undocumented students financially to pursue and complete law school through creative community engagement. Visit dreamerfund.org today. Hey, we're back. We're back. Thank you for joining us here on Clari-T Media. Alicia Mayo here, joined by the president of the Tri-City branch of the NAACP, President Johnny Kahn George. Thank you again, Johnny Kahn, for joining us. So before we went to break, I said that I wanted to, find out exactly how the NAACP is working for us right now, like next week. Are you guys working on issues like criminal justice and criminal justice reform? And how are you guys working on that for us?
Okay. Well, let me just start off by saying, you mentioned it when you first came on, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I know tomorrow we celebrate the MLK Day of Service, but I just want to let everyone know that in the commercialization of everything, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He would want us to celebrate a day of service. So for the children the kids that may be out of school tomorrow because of the holiday, and for the men and women that may be off work because of the holiday, please get out there and serve humanity as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King would have done as well. One of the things that we're doing now, Vacaville Councilman Roy Stockton and Vacaville Councilman Mike Silva has partnered with the Tri-City branch of the NAACP to do a first annual Black History celebration in the city of Vacaville. We're very excited about that. As far as, my work with the Tri-City NAACP.
Let me interrupt you there. I'm sorry. Did you say the first ever celebration?
Yes. In Vacaville.
For Vacaville. And I read back in 2001, I read an article in Essence magazine that African Americans in Vacaville at that time were some of the highest paid African Americans in the entire country. Okay. Keep going.
A lot of people don't know it's some money in Vacaville. Vacaville is
yeah. And we're just now, 20 years later, getting our first Black History celebration. Better late than never. Keep going, brother. Thank you.
Yes, and I actually want to, and this is a vision.
Sorry.
No worries. This is a vision of Councilman Roy Stockton. He's been on me to Johnny Kahn, let's make this happen. President George, let's make this happen. So I'm glad we got an awesome team of individuals. It's made up of individuals from all walk of life, age, religion. We got a lot of the BSU student presidents from Vacaville that's involved. They're advisors as well. We reached out to the Vacaville Unified School District, and they responded. I was pleased the way they responded, given the the news, or given the press, the negative press that they had with one of these students in the KKK uniform, but your KKK role. But we're glad that that they received it, and the superintendent let the principals know that this is something that she would like to see them participate in. And so again, it goes with my strategy is always diplomacy and partnerships and relationships. One of the other things, so we're doing that with in Vacaville, and then we also with Vice Mayor Wanda Williams. This is her dream to do her desire to have a Black History Month celebration here in Sassoon City. So we have a planning committee to make that happen as well. It's going to be a week-long celebration. So we got that going. Our education committee chair and co-chair, we've been meeting with the superintendent of the Fairfield Sassoon Unified School District, and we've been addressing the disparities. There's I believe when we talked, it was I'm not even going to get the figures because I'm going to mess it up, but there's a high number of students of color in a district, but the representation for teachers and administrators in the district doesn't represent the students. And so we've been meeting with them for several months. I think since November we started meeting, and we're making progress. It's in how we could address those issues. I've also been meeting with Chief Deanna Cantrell, our new chief for the Fairfield Police Department, and we're working on my hope before she came on board, I've always had issues with the way their citizen complaint. I forget the correct terminology, but the body where citizen complaints go to get reviewed, and so we're working. We have a discussion about how that can really be represented by the community members can really actually look at and view those complaints that other citizens are making. And we also, with the district attorney's office, I'm sorry, not the public defender's office, we're looking at ways, just from our meeting on Friday, introduction meeting, we're looking at ways how we can, do some know your rights initiatives, education, educating our community on their rights. I had a conversation with President Jimmy Jackson, of Vallejo President Jimmy Jackson, and the NAACP has an expungement project. And so we're going to partner together with the DA's office once we come out of this COVID, post-COVID, to see how we can get some of these young men and women coming out of prison, getting those felonies expunged off their records so that they can be productive citizens.
Great. What about any work in employment with the county of Solano?
Yeah, well, I give myself a shameless plug, but Icon Connects is a company that I own, and we're a staffing agency. One of the things that we do is pride ourselves on the ability to do diversity and inclusion, help organizations meet their diversity and inclusion goals. So that's what I'm doing personally. The NAACP, we don't have a committee right now that work on economic development, but that's something that we could look at in the future. One of the things that you asked, and it brings it up to it reminds me now. You talked about how others could get involved.
Yes. Yes.
This past summer, with the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and then the one that set the world on fire with
George Floyd.
Yeah, George Floyd. We've had a lot of individuals in this county, that joined our Caucasian brothers and sisters that joined our branch, and even just donated to the work that we're doing. And so I was pleased at how those individuals in our community, folks are tired and fed up. And I believe that if more of our Caucasian brothers and sisters would stand up, would use the platform of their privilege, and speak out, against the discrimination and the injustices, we could be farther along than we are. But we have some great new members that joined us this past summer.
Great. Well, that's great news to see that folks are stepping up, because it's one thing to get out and, march alongside, shoulder to shoulder with us. And that's great. But once we're done with that and we're back at home or on the job, and we have those connections and those abilities to bring people together economically through employment opportunities, housing opportunities, social policy development. Having John Garamendi here as one of our really active Congress members here in Solano County is nice. I've seen him work in the school district, and he's visible. And so to know that there are community members coming together like that with some power, who have some pull, and who kind of bring each other up as we all move up together. That's encouraging. And what is really encouraging for me personally to hear you talk about is the work that you're doing with the Fairfield-Sassoon Unified School District, because I was in fact employed with them for 12 years in special education as a behavior technician. And it was an uphill battle because every classroom that I went into to support the teachers on behalf of the district, that was my job, was to go into the classroom to support the teachers and the students with curriculum development, annual IEPs and all of that. I found myself up against teachers who just did not believe that I was qualified to work as support. So reach out to me for any help that you need with that. I have an inside point of view or experience that I can share, and in hopes to just progress, because that's what it takes. It really does take each of us to come forward and to step up and to do our part as individuals to make things happen. I mean, we can't do any of this work alone. By no means can we do the work alone. And I appreciate, what you're doing, but to see us all get together as a community, as an extended community with multiracial activism is, I think, the more effective way to do it. So thank you to you again for joining me here for this conversation. Any last words that you'd like to add for the audience? Anything that we missed?
Yes, just to piggyback off what you were just saying, one of the other things that that really got under my skin and is really, have me fighting, working vigorously with Superintendent Chris Curry is that we've also got a lot of calls from African American women that work or have worked in the district that have got passed over by less educated and less qualified white women. And so we've seen a pattern of, it seemed like that, that they wanted the demographics to look a certain way, when you have individuals, African American women that's been qualified, and they've been passed over. And so we've been working, with Superintendent Curry to address those things. And I believe that, you ought to be hearing a lot about that, this upcoming new school year. But, I just want to say the work of the final words, the work of the NAACP again is done by memberships. So you can reach out to me to become a member. It's also done by standing committees. So don't just join. We want you to roll up your sleeves and get busy because, as you said, Alicia, we've been very busy, since this George Floyd thing. A lot of individuals think because the NAACP haven't been, TriCity that is, haven't been out there, or we haven't been getting a lot of phone calls. It's not that there isn't any injustices in our community. Now that the TriCity NAACP is more visible, we're starting to get the calls from individuals. So join, roll up your sleeves and get busy. And when we have fundraisers, we need you to come out and participate because, again, this is all volunteer, and that's how, we keep the lights on is through our fundraisers.
Yeah, so thank you again, Johnny Kahn, for joining us here on Clari-T Media. I've been trying to get you on the show for almost a year now. I'm not going to rub it in. I really appreciate you coming, better late than never. And what a great time right now to come on, with everything happening, to kind of just give the folks out there an insight on just how hard you guys continue to work at the NAACP and what we can do to join in and continue the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and his work in the civil rights movement, and how we can spread the ideas of peace and equal rights and liberty for all. As individuals, we have work to do that we can do, that we can be effective in. Absolutely. So thank you again, Johnny Kahn.
I want to thank you, for what you do. And I just want to tell all your listeners that support Black media, because Black media have our narrative at heart. So support Black media. And, I want to give shout out to our press publicity and communication chair, Mrs. Danette Mitchell. She writes a column in the Vacaville Reporter each Sunday. And so Black media, support your local Black media.
Hear, hear. So thank you for that. Thank you for that support. Thank you for the support that those of you out there who are watching that you give me here just by tuning in on Facebook, Instagram, on YouTube, and giving me a like or subscribing to the Bay Area Mental Health Hour or to Clari-T Media. I really appreciate all of that support. Every little bit matters, because when I present my platform to sponsors who can really carry all of this content forward in a much larger way to reach a larger audience, they're going to look for the quality of the content. And so I hope that I've brought some great quality content to all of you. And again, for myself and on behalf of everyone here that work with me here and behind the scenes, which is mostly myself, it's just a one-woman band. for everyone here at Clari-T Media, we really appreciate you all. Enjoy this King Day celebration weekend and do your part to make a difference in the world. Okay, so thank you again, Johnny Khan. We appreciate your work.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys all later. Tune in weekdays to the Bay Area Mental Health Hour on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. You'll find us covering issues surrounding your everyday coping skills and your mental health and wellness. And remember, your mental health matters as much as your physical health.
With his own eyes and ears to say how to take down a black man, as if we're different from any other man. You know, so I just don't understand.
When white models to the front, then he would send them back. He did the same for each race. So before he came to my race, I excused myself.
I just wanted to get through college, and so my strategy was to just be malleable, just to kind of just be almost submissive.
That was a very interesting experience, specifically because we were taught history through a very white supremacist lens.
And then being married almost 18 years, just seeing my husband, who's a man of God and a professional, get stopped by the police and treated as if he was a cop.
I am a nigga.
Black woman owned. Clari-T Media.